Here in 2025, we have an embarrassment of riches when it comes to content. There are an infinite amount of subscription-based streaming services with tons and tons of content, but people are choosing more and more to move away from that type of thing, dust off things like their old VHS tapes, their DVDs, their CDs, and their vinyl, and move back to those mediums. Today, I want to talk about why that is. First, if you don't know me, I'm Spencer, and I like to talk about simple living, frugality, and digital minimalism. Today, we're getting into why physical media might be making a little bit of a comeback here in 2025, and what it means for our changing relationship with our technology. First off, I want to talk about the why. Why is this happening that people are turning away from subscription services, from streaming services in general, and moving back to physical media? I do want to say that this isn't something that is a mainstream thing at this point. This is something that's kind of bubbling in the background, but there is a growing interest in moving back to physical media, to the tangibility of physical media, I think. A lot of people spanning all different ages are going back to these older formats of media, but especially, and interestingly enough, young people. From where I'm standing, looking at this movement, trying to wrap my head around why people are moving back to these physical mediums, I think it's because ultimately we're getting tired of being constantly connected, tired of this smart world with its infinite everything all at once content. I think having all of these options at all times, it just can be overwhelming. People kind of want a little bit of limitation of choice. To a certain degree, freedom, infinite choice can be actually a suffocating thing, and people want to limit that down, be a little bit more intentional with the content that they consume. You also can't avoid the elephant in the room, and that's the fact that the streaming services and the subscription-based model is overwhelming itself. Indeed, many people report subscription fatigue nowadays. It's overwhelming to have so many choices, to have your content stratified across so many different platforms that you have to sign up to all of them. It's really turning into a cable package type deal. And just like the cable packages of old, people are finding it too expensive. You're signing up to multiple subscription-based streaming services at all times, so you're able to get all of the shows that you want to watch. As a result, the average person in America is spending, I believe, $200 and something per month on subscription-based services. Now, this includes things like phone plans and gym memberships as well, but streaming makes up a huge part of that number. There's also the problem with disappearing content and edited content as well. When streaming services are done with content, particularly stuff that they make, they'll often just get rid of it and completely wipe it from the internet. It's sometimes really hard to find these pieces of media that you might have enjoyed that these streaming services had if they decided that they're finished with it. Over the years, many streaming services have gotten a bad reputation for editing and changing content as well. There's numerous examples of edits to content being made for social or political reasons, or just full episodes of shows being not included in the streaming lineup because of those reasons as well. And lastly, I think one of the biggest draws to physical media is that you actually own the media. Whereas with the subscription model, you're paying that constant IV drip of money to have access to that content. With physical media, you buy once and you get to own it. Now, I'll always get the, well, actually person in the comment section who says, you don't actually own physical media. The digital file is owned by the person who created it or by the publishing company. But that isn't what we're talking about. And the average person, even those commenters, should know that's not what we're talking about. The appeal of owning the physical copy of whether it's a movie or a TV show or an album is that if there's some sort of dispute between the publisher and the streaming service, I'm not going to have that physical media taken away from me. Or if there's some sort of alteration made to the actual product, that's not going to affect me. This is something we've also seen with ebooks, with Kindle books in particular, where edits were made to the books or even covers were changed, and the company was able to remotely go into your device and make those changes without your consent. You're not going to take my old copy of Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, come into my house, and switch the books out to one of the ones with a newer cover. That's the benefit of physical media. You buy what you wanted and you get to keep it. So as you can see, there are quite a few drawbacks to the subscription-based streaming world, and I think there's a bit of a shift happening. People are going back to older ways of consuming their media, be that CDs or records or VHS tapes or DVDs or even Blu-rays. And I don't think that's simply for nostalgia. I think there's a functional reason to it as well. You know, when I started this channel back in 2023, one of the first videos I put out was my VHS collection, talking about why I was picking up VHS tapes and consuming that media, watching that as my main medium of choice in 2023. And although I have started collecting some DVDs as well, VHS is still my favorite way to go. I always find VHS tapes being given away for free on the curb here in Toronto. In fact, I actually found this weird one this morning and I don't know what's on it. Honestly, let's just take a pause and check this out quick.
Brothers and sisters, gather around, gather around. This portion of the program is brought to you by Aura, your mighty defender against the wicked ways of data brokers. Now let me tell you, these shady operators lurk in the shadows, scooping up your data as they please and then selling them to scammers, spammers, and sinners of the like, who ring your phone day and night. Aura dives deep to the dark corners of the web, finds your precious personal data, and sends it back to whence it came. But Aura doesn't stop there. No, sir! It's a one-stop shop digital security holy roller, I'll tell you what. Brothers and sisters, let me hear you say, I shall not be scammed again. Can I get an amen? Now me, I get a scam call just about every day. Somewhere along the line, my poor old number got caught up in this whole mess until I said, enough! Now I'm letting Aura do the heavy lifting so I can get back to plain old living, ladies and gentlemen. So folks, remember, don't let ne'er-do-wells run wild with your data. Try Aura free today by clicking the link in the description or visiting aura.com/Spencer's Adventures and watch as they scrub your data from those shady little sites without you lifting so much as a single finger. Thank you, Aura. And now back to your scheduled program.
Well, that was weird, wasn't it? Like I was saying, I think there is a growing popularity around these old formats of physical media. I often do find various types of physical media, including VHS tapes, being thrown out on the curb, but what's changed is that I'm not the only person looking to pick them up. Oftentimes, I'll go to a pile of physical media being thrown out on somebody's curb, and there's 2 or 3 other young people who are looking through it as well. When I go to thrift stores as well, I see a bunch of different people around my age or even younger combing through the physical media and building a collection. And I can recognize that there is a bit of a nostalgic element to this. People kind of remember a time where we weren't so connected, where our heads weren't constantly caught up in the online world and what the next piece of content is, and people want to go back to that time. But I don't think it's just about nostalgia, and I don't think it's wrong. Even if it's watching a movie or a show, which is still looking at a screen, people want that offline format. You know, it's kind of an open secret that our attention spans are being eroded, absolutely destroyed, honestly, by our devices. I saw a stat somewhere that like 95% of people watch movies or shows with their phone in their hand. Because of this fast-paced online world that we're in, where everybody has to catch the new streaming show, everybody has to be up to date on what is happening online, people just can't put their devices down even to watch a piece of content, even if it's their favorite show. So I think part of the appeal of moving back to these physical formats is the fact that it is an offline experience. You're most likely not watching any of these things on your computer. On the channel, I talk about utilizing single-purpose tools in my life, things that do one thing but do them very well, so that I'm not always reaching for my all-in-one device of the smartphone. By using these standalone and oftentimes analog single-purpose tools, I'm not being subjected to the smart world all the time. That feeling when you have your phone in your hand of just waiting to check for a notification or feeling like you have to flip it open to look at something. That's largely gone when I switch to single-purpose tools. I find that I use that thing and I use it more deeply. I'm less distracted. And especially when I was first getting into this digital minimalism thing, where I found myself really getting distracted still by my smart devices, having these standalone ways of consuming my media as well, like a VCR for my VHS tapes or a DVD player and a TV for my DVDs. I found that I was a lot more intentional with what I was choosing, and I was also a lot more focused watching that content. And around that topic of intentionality, when you actually have to pick up what you want, that specific title off of your shelf, or in my case, out of my drawer, or even go to the library or a movie rental place if there's still any near you and rent something out, you actually have to pick that thing and commit to it. An algorithm isn't going to be recommending your movie, and you're not going to spend hours and hours scrolling through your options because they are finite. And they're finite because they are physical. That means you can lend it out or swap movies with your friends. You can even sell your physical media when you're done with it so you can try other things. And it feels good to actually be able to hold the media in your hands. I have a few seasons of King of the Hill and Simpsons on DVD, and the menu screens for those are also so charming. It just feels like there's a little world of their own. Holding the cases and looking at the artwork, it's all an experience that we don't get with streaming services. I think also physical media and this kind of retro vibe has become a bit of an aesthetic as well. Some people aren't going to necessarily stick to it. They're just doing it for the vibe right now, but that's fine. The renewed interest in these technologies are leading to thrift stores stocking more of it and even companies meeting the moment with up-to-date products. A couple weeks ago, I received what's essentially a modern version of a Walkman. It plays tapes, but it has a USB-C charging internal battery. It also has Bluetooth. And these companies kind of are capitalizing on the digital minimalism trend, but that leaves more options for us who are looking for these technologies and don't want to pay inflated prices for used Walkmans. There's really cool record players being made and even some really cool CD players that I've seen that look like picture frames on the wall. Lastly, I want to show you guys some of my physical media, talk about a few of my favorite titles, and where I think this whole movement is going. Let's take a little walk to my living room, shall we? Okay, so we're here in my living room. I'm going to take you through a bit of my physical media and I'll talk about a few of my favorites. I made a deal with my girlfriend when I moved in here that I would keep my physical media collection limited to what could fit in this drawer. And it's honestly been good having some level of limitation and restriction on how much I can have, because it's allowed me to more so curate my content rather than just letting it flow in and have just tons and tons of stuff. As you can see, this drawer is pretty much at capacity now, so if anything else comes in, it's kind of a one in, one out policy at this point. My physical media collection is pretty much nostalgia picks. It's a lot of stuff that I grew up with and then stuff even way older than that. The split of VHS to DVDs is probably about 50-50, but because of the size of VHS tapes compared to the actual discs, it's a little bit more VHS. There's a lot of classics in here. One of my favorite of all time is Atlantis. This is just such a great movie. I love Milo Thatch and I just love a good adventure. And this is always gets me like hyped up to like go exploring and go to like a museum or something. Is it a precursor to National Treasure? Maybe. I also just love the artwork on some of these cases. Like this one for First Blood is a fave. Such a sick movie and shot in Canada, if you can believe it. I love this copy of Terminator as well, just a classic. Now I'm also a huge fan of Westerns and I grew up watching a ton with my grandpa. So I have like John Wayne, The Searchers, that's a great one. Magnificent Seven is also a classic as well. I have When Harry Met Sally from my girlfriend, and by owning this, I'm allowed to keep my drawer. And I know a lot of people have a lot of love for Fievel Goes West, and that is going to be the last film to ever leave my collection. For DVDs, my approach is not to get movies at all. I have pretty much no movies on DVD. It's just my favorite shows. Space-wise, getting your favorite seasons of TV shows is like the best bang for your buck, and they're also quite cheap as well. I got a few seasons of King of the Hill. Here's 2 of them. I also have 2 more. I got them for $5.99 each, but I also had a 20% off coupon, so pretty cheap. And each of these are about half as wide as a VHS tape, and there's probably 15 or 20 episodes on them, so it's a good space saver. One movie set that I do have on DVD, one of my favorites of all time, is Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. Now, I was growing up when this movie came out, and it's one of my favorite movies. I loved the soundtrack on this movie. It's just like one of my favorite ones, and the monsters are real. That was such a huge deal when this one came out. Now, I also have a decent amount of records as well, which I've shown on the channel before. I have a pretty good collection, a lot of folk and then a lot of rock as well. I buy all of my records secondhand. I usually buy unpopular genres like old folk and old country western stuff because I can get them for sub $5 each, and they're usually in pretty good condition too. But like I recently moved from VHS to also collecting some DVDs, I've also went back to getting some CDs as well. When I moved to Spotify back in like 2015, like a lot of people, I thought, this is great, I can pay this small fee and I can get infinite music. I don't need any of my CDs anymore. And I got rid of my entire collection for a few $100s. And like many people who have gravitated slowly back to physical media, I came to regret that decision, and I've slowly been building up a small curated CD collection again. But honestly, for me, the best thing about CDs, the thing that I utilize the most about them in 2025 is I rip them on my computer and then I can load them onto my iPod or even on my phone. CDs are so versatile because I can have them digitally and I can have them physically at the same time. Now, CDs are just starting to get a bit popular again, but they're still very, very unpopular and a lot of people don't see the value in having them. So every CD that I own at this point, except for 2 of them, let's say I have like 30 right now, and except for 2 of them, I got every other one for free. Just walking around my neighborhood on my morning or my evening walks, people are putting out boxes full of physical media. I found VHS tapes, I found tons of DVDs, TV series, and CDs. And it's a great variety of stuff. It's not just mainstream stuff. I got Jimmie Rodgers here with T for Texas. This is one of my favorite tracks. I love Jimmie Rodgers. And that's not all of it either. I found John Prine, I found the Beatles, I found Gordon Lightfoot, tons of different stuff. If you're looking to start a physical media collection of some kind, I would say start small. You can definitely find stuff for free if you're looking around, or definitely for very cheap at places like thrift stores. Try to be intentional about it. Curate it a little bit. Don't just grab everything in sight. Pick your favorites and get those. And with things like CDs and movies, these things that I'm getting for free on the curb, I'll take them home, I'll enjoy them, I'll watch them, I'll listen to them for a time, and when I think I'm done with them and I don't think I'm going to revisit them, then I'll give them back. I'll put them back on the street. Somebody else will take them and enjoy it. And that type of sharing of media, the kind of stuff that we see with these small community libraries as well, it's just something that we can't do with streaming services. We're able to share these things within our communities, not have to pay for everything, not have to have everything ourselves. We can share it and we can utilize these resources between each other. Most of my VHS tapes I bought at a church yard sale for $0.25 a piece. Almost all of my CDs I got for free. I paid less than $5 for most of my records. So remember that it doesn't have to be an expensive thing. I think one of the barriers for people getting into physical media collecting again, curating a small physical media collection, is the fact that they think it's going to be so costly. Part of the issue though is that physical media streaming, it's not apples to apples. You're not going to own every title that Netflix has. That would be quite pricey to do. Instead, what you're going to do is you're going to pick your favorite TV shows, the thing that if you didn't have a streaming service you actually would miss. You're going to find that secondhand and you're going to keep those. That way, if you're smart about it, you're going to spend less than $100 on a small physical media collection that's less than a year of a streaming service, and you can enjoy it forever. Lastly, I want to talk about where I see this trend going. Do I see it continuing to get more and more popular? Physical media becomes the norm again? Sadly, no, I don't. I think it's going to remain a niche thing. I think it's going to get a little bit more popular still, but I think ultimately it will be a niche thing that will slowly fade and fade, but it's not going to ever really go away. However, what I do think this renewed interest in physical media points to is that there is a shift happening in the mindset of people that we've kind of had enough. Not with streaming services particularly, or digital media even, just with everything online. And that's not to say that we're going to turn away from all of these things either. It means that we're going to try to look for more balance. It's really been less than 20 years since the first iPhone came out, since we were really plunged into the smart world. What that means to me is that we're still very much learning how to balance with these tools. We got more and more and more over the last 20 years, but now people are kind of stopping and saying, I don't want any more. I'm overwhelmed. I'm anxious. I want to back up a little bit. I don't want to be constantly connected. And we're moving back to these things. Going back to DVDs and VHS tape or even Laserdisc isn't going to be the solution to everyone, but I think that this is a symptom of the times. So while I don't see people making this huge move back to physical media from streaming, I think we haven't even gotten close to the peak of where we're at with digital minimalism. I think many people, including me, have come to this point where they say, I'm just getting sick of all of it. The smart world, the digital distraction, the attention economy. I want to get back from all of this, and I want to go back to when that wasn't a problem for me, to that time with the retro technology, that time that we're all nostalgic for. And in the future, we're not going to live in this retro technology world, I think, but we're going to live in a world, hopefully, where we have a more balanced relationship with our tech. And for me, that started here with physical media. So folks, I hope you found this video interesting. Just my thoughts on this quiet revolution of people moving back to physical media and finding a way to get a little bit more attention and intention back in their life by using these physical means of consuming content. I'd love to hear from you in the comments about your relationship with physical media, how that's evolved over the years. Maybe like me, you went to streaming services, you tried that for a while, you didn't find that ultimately fulfilling as the at least one size fits all solution, and you found a balanced approach or fully moved back to the physical stuff. Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks very much for watching, folks, and I'll see you in the next one.